Jared when net, Ryan Gosling, states to the watchers that the universe of banking is very exhausting. Things changed when Luis Ranieri, Rudy Eisenzoff, made an arrangement for contract-upheld protections to guarantee greater benefits with lower gambles since everybody was paying their home loans. This was huge for brokers up until the year 2008 when the worldwide monetary emergency hit. WenNet adds that a little gathering of people saw this coming. The following scene shows mutual funds mogul Michael Burry, Christian Bunch, in his office directing a meeting with a youthful expert. Burry says his better half let him know he really wants to share more. He examines having a glass eye since youth due to losing his genuine eye to a sickness. We see him as a youngster playing in a football matchup and being embarrassed when the eye drops out. Burry keeps chattering about how the tech bubble burst in 2001, yet the real estate market went up. He enlists the examiner on the spot and educates him to get him a rundown of the main 20 selling contract bonds. The scene movements to a guiding meeting where imprint Baum, Steve Carell, enters and assumes control over the meeting by griping to everybody about an experience he just had with a retail investor in regards to his bank's overdraft strategies and how he is cheating functioning individuals. Baum disdains individuals working in enormous banks, particularly after his sibling ended it all subsequent to getting cheated. He later calls his better half Cynthia, Marissa Tomei, to communicate his outrage, which she is accustomed to finding out about, yet figures he ought to leave his place of employment. Baum then takes a taxi from another man. Burry gets his work done and audits the rundown he requested. He finds that the real estate market is being supported by subprime credits in which clients are giving less returns, and afterward concludes he can wager against the real estate market and benefit off of it. To appropriately make sense of what a subprime credit is, WenNet, actually describing, guides us to a lady, Margot Robbie, scrubbing down and drinking champagne to make sense of that. Subprime signifies poop, and that the banks made them to add more home loans to their arrangements. Burry then goes to various banks, beginning with Goldman Sachs, to communicate the possibility that the securities will fizzle and to make a credit default trade market. Thinking the bonds are secure, the financiers roll with his bet. Burry's manager Lawrence Fields, Tracy Letts, is upset by his arrangement because of a paranoid fear of how it'll treat their own business. WenNet learns of Burry's dealings and afterward meets with Baum and his group of financial backers Danny Moses, Rafe Spall, Dorman Collins, Hamish Linklater, and Winnie Daniel, Jeremy Solid, to propose to them the possibility of the credit default trade. He makes sense of that every one of the terrible bonds can be assembled into CDOs, collateralized obligation commitments. WenNet carries us to Anthony Bourdain to clear up CDOs by contrasting it for making a fish stew from a lot of fish that didn't sell excessively well. After WenNet leaves, Baum and his group think about treating his words in a serious way. We meet youthful confident financial backers Charlie Geller, John Magaro, and Jamie Shipley, Finn Whitrock, standing by to meet with somebody from JP Morgan Pursuit. Nonetheless, they don't get far without having an ISDA arrangement. Deterred, they then, at that point, find a pitch from WenNet on how the real estate market is an air pocket, which Shipley states is definitely not a totally precise portrayal of how they looked into it. They choose to get on board with the credit default trade fad and get resigned broker Ben Rickert, Brad Pitt, to help them since they are too unpracticed to even think about pulling off the exchanges they need to benefit from this. Moses and Collins go to a neighborhood to track down dispossessed houses. They experience a leaseholder that stresses over being ousted with his child. Moses and Collins enter a home with a past due notice paper in the kitchen, and afterward a home with a crocodile in the pool. Burry is faced by Fields for his wagering, imagining that his arrangement will bomb in 6 years or less. He and another financial backer interest their cash back, yet Burry will not surrender. Baum and his group dive further into the real estate market, meeting with a realtor, 2 home loan representatives, and, surprisingly, a stripper to find out about what kind of credits are given to specific clients, driving Baum to understand that the market is for sure an air pocket. By mid-2007, it is accounted for that contract misconducts have arrived at another high. Baum and his group are told to surrender their trades by risk assessors. Baum has Daniel advise them to fuck off. The two meet with Georgia Sound, Melissa Leo, an official for Standard & Poor's, and barbecue her over giving banks AAA rates on subprime advances. She shields herself by saying the banks would default on the off chance that they didn't get those appraisals, and Baum reprimands her activities, yet she fires back by noticing that he and his group own different credit default trades. Wennet advises Baum and his group to haul out of their exchanges, as Geller tells Shipley exactly the same thing, because of home loan defaults going up. Shipley and the group both express their particular negative perspectives. Rickert tells the folks, as Wennet tells his folks, to go to Las Vegas to go to the American Securitization Gathering. The two gatherings go to Vegas for the discussion. Baum invests his energy barbecuing the head honchos for their dealings. Shipley meets with a young lady he knows named Evie, Karen Gillen, who works for the SEC, and inquires as to whether the SEC researches contract bonds, to which she says no. Burry turns out to be progressively sullen as he keeps on discovering that bonds aren't going down and that the entire framework is fake. Geller, Shipley, and Rickert then intend to short AA tranches. They make many arrangements with numerous financiers, yet as Geller and Shipley observe, Rickert advises them that in the end, the market will implode and a huge number of individuals will be harmed from it. The acknowledgement raises a ruckus around town profoundly. Baum meets a money manager named Mr. Chow, Byron Munn, in a gambling club and discovers that he has made manufactured CDOs, which is a progression of increasingly big wages on flawed credits. Baum gradually understands the economy will implode. We then, at that point, get Richard Thaler and Selena Gomez to make sense of what a manufactured CDO is by contrasting it with individuals making wagers on Selena succeeding at blackjack since her chances are doing great, until she bargains a terrible hand, and everybody loses. By April 2007, everybody is getting ready for the inescapable. Burry keeps financial backers from pulling out their cash. Geller and Shipley head over to the press and so forth to caution them about the breakdown, yet nobody is keen on seeking after the story. Baum and his group are told to surrender or sell their trades. As anticipated, toward the finish of 2008, the market economy has fallen, however that large number of engaged with the shorts have benefited enormously from the trades, albeit not a single one of them are glad for it. A few banks start closing down. Burry resigns, and one of his investigators takes a new position at a 7-11. The man that Moses and Collins visited before is presently living out of a van with his better half and child. Geller and Shipley have lost confidence in the framework. Baum makes reference to a bailout occurring, which Wennet states is valid, and that the banks saved their skins and put the terrible things on settlers, poor people, and even instructors. Daniel then, at that point, lets Baum know that they ought to sell their trades. Yet Baum thinks it'll make them as terrible as the banks, however Daniel says something else. Baum then, at that point, advises him to sell them all. The last text peruses that $5 trillion from land values, benefits reserves, 401k, investment funds, and securities had vanished after the breakdown. 8 million individuals lost their positions, 6 million lost their homes, and that was exclusively in the US. Mark Baum would not say, "I told you so," and his group keeps on running their asset together. Charlie Geller and Jamie Shipley endeavored to sue appraisals organizations yet were snickered out of the workplaces. Shipley actually runs Brownfield, yet Geller moved to Charlotte to begin a family. Ben Rickert lives with his better half on a plantation. Michael Burry reached the public authority a few times to check whether anybody would ask him how he anticipated the breakdown. No one answered, yet he was examined multiple times by the FBI. He currently just puts resources into water. In the current day 2015, a few enormous banks, who in their corporate eagerness had obviously picked up nothing, started selling billions in CDOs.